remember moving across the tundra in herds, fighting the environment and fellow tribes for survival. We prepared against the night with fire. Despite the flames, shadows with fangs devoured our weakest. Sometimes I fought to protect the tribe. Most times I hid and was picked off with the rest. Struck down, a deep sleep would come over me. But before I died, I would wake up in another man's body. I watched through new eyes as we buried my old body. I learned I was different. I could take the bodies of younger men, yet retain my old self. Was I the only one with this gift? Tribes disappeared. People formed societies based on barter and trade. Making money was life's goal. I became a trader, a professional merchant in all things. I guided caravans of furs to the Far East and returned with salt and spices. While I was an old spice trader, I came across a young moneylender. I saw opportunity and sold him my business for a steal. As I took him, his last thoughts were of how foolish I was. Whenever I took the shock of transfer, it killed my victim moments after we switched bodies. So he was the fool who watched from dying eyes as I drove away in my new body. Over the next century, I traded everything from food to weapons to drugs. And eventually people. I could have made my fortune on people if it were not for her. At the auction houses, her eyes stared back at me from the faces of the newly sold. Whenever trouble started, I'd take a neighboring rival and flee. And every time I thought I escaped her, I'd see the red eyes in the desperate crowd, madly urging on the next rebellion. My Praetorians tried to take the Aquila 3 times that bloody day, and we would have succeeded if it weren't for him. He was covered in so much blood that I never knew for which side he fought. With skin like stone, he crushed friend and foe alike. I took soldiers and mercenaries, flag bearers and messenger boys, and threw my new selves at him. After crushing me for the 10th time, he stopped fighting and laughed. He said he had seen me before in my previous lives, me and the woman. I tried to ask him more, but he charged down the hill, trampling anything in his path. I fell to my knees and let my peers claim victory. 3 priestesses burned a victory pyre on a distant hill. The 3rd stared down at me, her eyes glowed red. Hundreds met their fate on the cross, trapped by my web of spies. I caught her eyes in the faces of those who spat on the empire. She was among the rabble, cursing good soldiers as they carried out their grim duty. As my men seized the old lady, her body crumpled to the ground. I found the burning eyes mocking me in the head of a young girl. Hesitantly, my men brought the child to me. She died in their arms. Crimson eyes glared down at me from a prostitute on the cross. I told my men to bring her down. Instead, believing me possessed, they seized me. I took the thief next to the prostitute. Our eyes met. Then she took the body of a heretic several crosses down. I followed her, chasing and taking all along the Appian Way. I fled as the crucifixions grew worse. To the east, where there was less theological mania, I accumulated a fortune over several lifetimes. I did not marry. Instead, I slaked my thirsts on bar wenches and street prostitutes. I was unable to conceive despite my appetite for lust. So I took what I wanted without questioning my blessing. As long as there was a person nearby, I could take their lives. There was only one question that haunted me. Where was she? Over 100 years passed, and my longing for her grew. I left hints for her around the world, a trail she would hopefully someday follow. I went south, where I established the most popular harem in the world. So popular, I was asked to write down my techniques. I found myself in the hottest part of India, writing a book I knew nothing about. When he found me, my tantric maidens had painted me in fertility blue. The immortal had not changed over the centuries. Carving facial features into stone did not make the stone feel. He laughed his empty laugh. He knew of my lost love, knew of my transgressions. He told me I didn't deserve her, to let the taker go and embrace my debauchery. He offered me sciences of pleasure and pain, secrets of lust. But all I asked of him was how to find her. And his answer was that cruel laugh. I took a native man who could breathe the thin air and climb the mountain like a yak. I found her at the top, like the immortal promised. Her black hair was curly, tinged in auburn, and coarse to the touch. She was not pleased to see me. I confessed all my sins. I begged her to give me a chance, let me prove that I had changed. She sighed and told me that to be together, our evil had to end. No more being thieves of time, no more taking. The isolated mountain was for us, to grow old together. At the end, there'd be no one to take. I agreed to every word. I took her in my arms, and our passion echoed off the mountains. While old empires fell below, we kept one another warm above, for almost a lifetime. Unfortunately, as the end approached, I realized I did not want to die. I set out while she slept, before my old body failed. As luck would have it, I came across a yak herder and his daughter. Something dreadful came over me. I took over her father and had my way with his daughter. I covered up my crimes with fire. Even in my new body, the stench of murder and worse stuck to me. When I got home, she knew. Calmly, she told me I needed to be stopped, that I was a monster. In the setting sun, I watched as she leapt from the mountain. I took again and again as I searched the mountains for her. The whole range was abandoned as haunted, as was I. I searched for her during a plague named after a Roman emperor, and found nothing but death. Mothers sold their children for miracle cures. Women who once accused whores of being witches sold their bodies to survive. I bought and sold orphans to silver mines and cut purses. Every whore who spread her legs for me spread the plague as well. I learned that morality was just an idea. Evil and good happened without reason. The world had not changed much since my savage days among the Cro-Magnon. But when sobriety threatened and the diseased whores ran out, all my rationalizations ran dry. I still heard my lover's voice condemning me to an eternity without her. Dark times of famine and plague, witches and vigilantes. Funeral pyres blotted out the sun. Some spoke of the end of the world, but I had seen us closer before. Highwaymen roamed the countryside and corrupt constables exploited the towns. Whenever we were overwhelmed by brigands, I would take one of the attackers. I slit my new companions' throats while they slept and escaped their treacherous company. Same for pirates. Attacking ships would soon have a new stowaway on board. Over time, entire crews met their fate at the hands of the ghosts of their victims. A lone sailor would float into port, sell the boat and disappear. They spoke of Solomon's gold and El Dorado, mythic names I had given to my stashes. My years passed, lonely and empty. Roads developed, plagues subsided, wars lessened, and countries were reborn. Places like inns, theaters, and churches stood for generations. I left hints of my existence in these places. I desperately wished she'd seek me out. I carved myself into the header stone and blackmailed Hungarn into putting me in his first snow. That's how the vampire found me. I smelled the vampire first, not the stench of death, but corruption. He sat at my writing desk, his skin translucent, his eyes mesmerizing. He laid out his plans and promised me the one thing I desired as payment for my service. My love. It would take centuries to amass enough wealth to attract our desired investor. I entered his employ, desperate for any chance to draw her to me. He tasked me with sailing west. I protested that there was nothing to the west, and he laughed. We sailed for months, and men disappeared from the boats. Sailors whispered of a haunted stowaway. Close to mutiny and losing hope, we found land. A tropical, exotic place with exotic people. We founded the first bank of the New World, just like the bloodsucker predicted. I acted as the bank's executive, promoting the first New World bank across the world. I asked the vampire how would the bank return my love to me. He told me a story. Centuries ago, he discovered a most delicious-smelling woman. The vampire did not want to waste such exquisite blood. So instead of eating the aristocrat, the vampire made her an offer. Every generation, a family member would come pick up a donation. Endless wealth. In exchange, a relative with glowing red eyes would offer herself. Believing me in love with an ancient relative, he promised to let me keep his next meal. For all his cunning, the vampire did not know he was eating the same person each year. There was only one way to accrue capital at the time: pirating. We stole deposits from other banks' boats. We hung unlucky merchants from the ballast and left their skeletons on display. But during a raid, one of my captains was murdered by a stowaway. One by one, all my captains fell, leaving their second mates in charge. As I was boarded by my own treacherous men, I met the eyes of my love. My heart guided me, and I went to embrace her. She ran me through with her cutlass. Her new crew tied a cannonball around my neck and tossed me into the sea. I almost gave in to the deep, dark ocean. Instead, I took an oarsman on a nearby slave barge and fled back to the FNWB. Our boats had been the bank's first line of defense. Her forces were merciless, not stopping for rifle or cannon fire. Every time she was gunned down, she took another pirate and renewed her charge. When she breached the bank, she marched right past the cowering vampire. When she encountered the gated door, she took the woman auditor locked inside. She scribbled on a piece of paper with a quill and dropped it in the largest deposit box. She marched out of the vault and never turned my way. She walked into the ocean and disappeared beneath the waves. Shocked, the vampire followed her out into the sun. I looked at the note, and to my surprise, I received the invitation I had been awaiting. I take my way north to an undiscovered country. No one should ever live in such an unforgiving place. But I learned that these savages were more noble than any man I'd ever known. I watched her emerge from a teepee, dressed in animal furs, one with the forest. I approached with my hands up. Before I could explain myself, she brandished a jagged stone blade. I raised my tomahawk to deflect her attack. Instead, she plunged the dagger into her heart. I felt her take a girl in a nearby stream. I took her little brother on the bank and pursued. chased my love across the new world. Every time I caught her, she took another, and I was left with a dying native in my arms. We ran for decades and never stopped, leaving blood-stained ground in our wake. Rival tribes found the bodies of our taken entwined, their peace pacts shattered. We reached the edge of nothing, where I cornered her. We were completely alone. I begged her to love me again. She laughed in my face and sprung her trap. She reached into my head like she was trying to take me. I blacked out, but when I came to, I stood over her body, a bloody rock in my hand. I couldn't sense a single soul nearby, not one for the taking. Had I killed my love once and for all? Revolution burned the world. Mankind's spite for itself almost matched my own. I was in China when the peasants used opium to overthrow a centuries-old dynasty. I was in Europe when a doctor invented the guillotine. I was in a harbour town when soldiers fired into a mob and sparked a revolution. My hate took me from war to war. Genocide, imperialism, manifest destiny. It spilled out on battlefields that consumed generations. I encouraged men who had no business leading to keep fighting. And when everything crashed down around them, I switched sides. I always won, even when I lost. No amount of pain or pleasure could fill up the hole left inside me. I found a pair of morons with an idea so suicidal it was sure to end in catastrophe. We sailed north, pushed further than any before, until the terror stuck in the ice. All the men aboard perished. Mother Nature and I split their deaths. I froze on the deck, waiting to die. Stunned, I watched the immortal stroll out of the snowstorm. With my love lost to me, I informed him of my intended suicide. He laughed and tossed me a murky, sepia-toned photograph. Even without color, I could see the sparkle that danced in her eyes. I found her in the Sahara, where she had carved out an underground grotto. Fresh water, fish, a stocked pantry, a pair of yaks, and even an impressive library. She must have turned wicked, for she had 2 fresh new bodies for our taking. Young, strong locals tied up with special restraints. She showed me how to slip the knots for when we exchanged places. We counted down and took new bodies at the same time. One tug at my restraints and I knew she'd tricked me. She slipped her bonds off on her first attempt. She buried me deep in the wasteland where no tribes would range. I was entombed with only a pair of corpses and a couple of yak for company. Just when I'd lost all hope, I felt a human presence far above me. I took the closest person and my eyes opened to a new terror. Endless sky surrounded me, the land infinitely small below. I was sealed in steel coffin that shook, screamed and burned in the air. Lead tore through the fuselage and my guts splattered across the cockpit. I plummeted to the earth, but right before I hit the ground, I took again. The man I took was burning up, his plane in flames. So I took again and crashed again. Back and forth between both sides, slowly I learned to fly. I crashed all the way to Europe, where I found a suitable body on the ground, and added flying to the list of things I'd never do again. The 80s summarized the 20th century. Time to get what you could before the boat sank. Humanity was more a monster than ever, just wrapped up in a new, sterile packaging. So much hedonism, a great time to be a taker. Drug binges, fortunes gambled, and the women. I had waited thousands of years for the day whores could call themselves professionals. The 80s. Some days I took 2 or 3 people just to experience their overly stimulated lifestyle. But my heart had not changed since the chase on the cross. I took everything I wanted, except what I needed.
You You could not have stopped what was coming. Man is foolish to think he can overcome a power that swaps oceans and mountains.
The Immortal explained this to a transport barge full of refugees with no destination. Most of them had spent their entire life savings to pay for passage on the barge, or their last glass of water. All the water worth drinking was kept for the elite, while the poor poisoned themselves on water that teemed with disease. Each person I took was thirstier than the last. Machine guns fired on the crowds gathered on the docks.
The Immortal just smiled and said, "This is not the end." Not even close.
Borders pressed, rivalries boiled over, resources evaporated. Someone finally pushed the button. All my stashed loot and stolen relics earned me a small room aboard a space station. Eridu was one of 3 stations that acted as arks for humanity. The Immortal was there, running the military police in his own terrifying fashion. He chuckled and asked if I'd seen my girlfriend lately. With the supply of humans running low, I sparingly jumped between space stations. I prowled the corridors, monitored every news feed, inquired at every registry station. But what name could I give? How could I explain the hunt for my love? For 200 years I searched while the world burned below. Space was not kind to human evolution. We had become short, hairless shadows of our species. Lacking vital organs and nerve endings, my thoughts came slower in the bodies of the demi-humans. After one of the stations drifted into the sun, we decided to return to Earth's surface. We left our arks behind, and a new race set foot on their alien home. The Immortal smiled his cruel smile as he towered over the dimwits bumbling beneath him. Radiation levels were high, but demi-humans didn't live long enough to fear cancer. I caught her eyes in the sea of demi-humans, but she took a new body and disappeared. Her remains were devoured by a carnivorous plant. While aboard the Eridu, I had learned of cryogenic bunkers hidden deep in the earth. I herded my human cattle towards the nearest hold. We climbed mountains and waded through swamps. Many did not survive. Harried by acid storms and firequakes, I had to keep my chattel on a tight leash. When any of them fled, I would take the coward, return to the group with a warning. Like their ancestors, they whispered about me like I was a demon. I made it to the cryogenics facility with little time to spare. Thousands of healthy humans stored underground. I took the body of a movie star. I would use these souls to search for her. Bunkers were scattered across the world. I searched for her and rationed the healthy bodies from the bunkers along the way. I traveled from bunker to bunker and looked for glowing red eyes. I set fire to a mountain in a desperate attempt to catch her attention. Most bunkers were decayed holes in the ground, bombed out long ago. Some were yawning beasts, maws pried open from the inside. Power failures froze others, those inside trapped forever. I was on my last body when I found the last bunker. And her. Those glittering eyes reminded me she wanted more than I could give. Her minions fueled and supplied the shuttle while she ignored me. The demi-humans loaded cryogenic chambers of fresh souls for a long journey. An automated weapon system prevented me from getting close. I took several of her minions and probed her defenses. I pleaded as she closed the hatch and the ship took off. Then I felt her in my mind again. I fought her, but she was stronger and everything went black. I I awoke crashed on a distant planet trapped in a dying body. I stumbled through the crash. Everything aboard was dead. I had a mortal wound on my side, and no one to take, as did the ship. I smelled the jungle through the breach. The air was wet and ancient. The closest thing to human were a species of carnivorous ape. I watched their vicious fighting. The loser became lunch, which would become my fate if I did not take one of the feral beasts. My final thoughts were of her and how this was what I deserved.
We watched his engine's light flare out into space.
The immortal said, "The course of true love never runs smooth."
It wasn't love, I said. The taker knew nothing of love.
But he thought he did. He thought he loved you.
Men cannot love. I was a man once. I know.
Why not stay a man? Why the millennia of cat and mouse?
I couldn't stand being in a man's heart. I watched the descendants of humankind burrow into the prairie bushes.
I will miss you both. A doomed romance spanning centuries. Very entertaining.
The earth trembled as he left. I did not call after him.